So last night we had the vice presidential debate between Joe Biden and Paul Ryan, and Joe Biden didn't just bring a lead pipe, he brought a blowtorch. Man, he laughed at him. He laughed at him. Here, in fact, watch a compilation of his laughs here.
This is a bunch of stuff.
They disavowed their own statement.
You both saw Benjamin Netanyahu.
We Irish call it malarkey.
Thanks for the translation.
Evans, we had these sanctions in place. It's in spite of their opposition.
Oh, God.
They've given...
Can you tell the American
By the way,
people what's worse, another war in the Middle East?
To a nuclear weapon.
The Ayatollahs see these kinds of statements and they think, I'm going to get a nuclear weapon. We can debate the timeline. We can debate the timeline.
It's going down.
This is his 2-minute answer,
Look.
please.
Look, here's the deal.
That sometimes the words don't come out of your mouth the right way.
But I always say what I mean.
Look, I love that Biden did that. Of course, the rest of the media is like, oh, that was a little impolite. Fox News crying all day about, I can't believe he laughed at him. But Paul Ryan looked like a child. Do you think that guy is ready to be president of the United States of America? Look, and his talking points were nonsense. They should have been dismissed, and Biden did dismiss him. And he kept hammering him all night long. Watch this.
But it shouldn't be surprising for a guy who says 47% of the American people are unwilling to take responsibility for their own lives. My friend recently in a speech in Washington said 30% of the American people are takers. I mean, these guys bet against America all the time. Stop talking about how you care about people. Show me something. Show me a policy. If they'd get out of the way, and let us pass the tax cut for the middle class, make it permanent. If they get out of the way and pass the jobs bill, if they get out of the way and let us allow 14 million people who are struggling to stay in their homes, just get out of the way. And I've never met two guys who are more down on America across the board. These people are my mom and dad, the people I grew up with, my neighbors. Folks, use your common sense. Who do you trust on this? A man who introduced a bill that would raise it $6,400 a year. They are elderly people who, in fact, are living off of Social Security. There are veterans and people fighting in Afghanistan right now. Let me tell you who some of those other small businesses are. Hedge funds that make $600-800 million a year. That's what they count as small business. Facts matter, Martha. You're a foreign policy expert. Facts matter.
RC East,
the most dangerous place in the world.
Right.
You'd rather Americans be going in and doing the job instead of the train?
We are already sending Americans to do the job, but fewer of them. That's
right. We're sending in more Afghans to do the job. Afghans to do the job.
I love that. Get out the way, yo, get out the way. He's like, look, if you're not going to actually care about the middle class, and you're going to do the same exact policies that got us into this recession, that created this deficit, then at least get out of the way and let us do our proposals so that we can help this economy. And I love that he called them out on all these things that they needed to be called out for decades on. And you know what? Ryan apparently was feeling the heat because he kept going to the water, like going to his corner, going, oh, hold up, dog, hold up. Now, let me get a refreshment here. In fact, we counted the number of times he went for the water. Watch this.
By 300 from the Reagan years to take action militarily. But last thing, the absolute last resort, the idea of evidence of cronyism. By the way, vice presidential debate, I hear this kind of stuff. Said it would cost 6
minutes here, a few seconds, really. Coin toss again.
It's fun for everybody. Now, look, Paul Ryan came in there with his talking points. Joe Biden seemed like a real guy who really cared about these issues and at least knew them really well, whereas Paul Ryan seemed like he was reading all of his answers. But I love the line Biden gave him. He said, look, all you guys do is talk. Show me in your policies that you care about people. You tell me you care about people, but then you've got these giant tax cuts for the rich and nothing for the middle class. That ain't right. And in fact, Biden wasn't done with him yet. He did the lead pipe, and here comes the blowtorch.
With all due respect, that's a bunch of malarkey.
And why is that so?
Because not a single thing he said is accurate. This is a bunch of stuff. Look, here's the deal.
What does that mean, a bunch of stuff?
Well, it means it's simply inaccurate.
It's Irish.
With regard to Bibi, who's been my friend for 39 years. You know, I heard that death panel argument from Sarah Palin. It seems every vice presidential debate I hear this kind of stuff about panels. Their ideas are old and their ideas are bad. And by the way, they talk about this great recession if it fell out of the sky. Like, oh my goodness, where did it come from? It came from this man voting to put 2 wars in a credit card, $1 trillion tax cut for very wealthy. He sent me 2 letters saying, by the way, can you send me some stimulus money for companies here in the state of Wisconsin? And now all of a sudden these guys are so seized with the concern about the debt that they created.
He said you did ask for stimulus money,
sure he
correct?
did. By the way,
on 2 occasions, we advocated for constituents who are applying for grants. That's what we do. We do that for all constituents who are applying.
I love that. I love that. And now he's sitting here looking at me.
Jack Kennedy lowered tax rates, increased growth. Ronald Reagan.
Now you're Jack Kennedy.
Ronald Reagan.
Even Ryan had to laugh at the Jack Kennedy line, but the stimulus letters were the best. You got 2 stimulus letters. Here's one. Then here's another one. Well, I thought you said it doesn't work. Then why did you come begging for stimulus money and say in your letters that it creates jobs? And my favorite part was when he said, look, these are same old ideas. Because that's exactly right. They only have the tax cuts for the rich and wars in the Middle East. And they want to go back to those ideas that nearly destroyed the country under the Bush administration. Well, Joe Biden's job was to stop the bleeding after President Obama bungled the first debate. Not only did he stop the bleeding, he started the bleeding on the other side. So I thought it was a clear win. And don't let anybody tell you otherwise. The mainstream press always, let's call it even, unless the Democrats lost, in which case let's say the Democrats lost. They're going to try to call this even. It wasn't even. They had to take Paul Ryan out on a stretcher.